My loves, my loves, my loves. Geeia Ariati here, the Oracle for the 144. And welcome, Soul Family, Adonai. And as you're jumping in, just making sure you're having a couple of deep breaths. Today, we're talking about something that I am very familiar with and currently in. So you might even notice, and I would love to have the comments, and in the comments, pop in if you can see, acknowledge, receive, and interpret what it is that takes place on the human level when one goes into what we call psychic surgery. So I am, whew, I was guided as I was actually about to go and take myself off to bed after the reminder from my partner that I was experiencing, as a little reminder to my mood as to the experience of the psychic surgery. And I went to brush my teeth. It's literally just gone 6 p.m. here in Brisbane, Australia. And I was like, I'm taking myself to bed. I'm exhausted, in which I've been feeling the majority of today. Obviously, there's been a lot of energies, there's a lot of different things biologically, moon cycle for myself, and all kinds of different things that are moving through, as well as being in the final stages of a big initiation phase that feels like it is drawing out. But so the rationale was like, it's just how we're feeling. But what I think is really important is to bring to light what happens with psychic surgery. When does it happen? How does the human experience? What happens when you don't know that you're experiencing psychic surgery? Why does it happen? And shedding some light to this experience, because I know for me there was many times that I experienced this, and it wasn't until I was able to channel, move through memories, come into the reconciliation within myself to understand the experience itself. So please bear with me with my brain's capacity, because this is a part of the experience. So when let's first start with, like, why does psychic surgery happen? What is psychic surgery? What is it, and what does it mean? So a lot of healers sometimes will say that there's brain surgery or heart surgery taking place on a body when they're doing Reiki or energy work, and they might call in angelic support to perform a surgery on someone who's in a altered state of consciousness or in a point of healing. And basically what happens is the angelic support team will come down, and light gets weaved through the physical cells and the cellular structure, and if you can imagine light moving through carbon density at a very intense, rapid rate, it can work and feel like a blade. So there is restructuring that takes place. There is movement of cells that realign. There is elements of the physical anatomy that receives light in a way that shifts the cellular structure very, very quickly. And often you can have the person move out of their body if you're doing the healing. So for instance, when I've done healings on people and I've been in that state, what I do is I will actually move their spirit and their soul from their body, and they will just be flooded with a whole lot of light, rather than targeting one specific area, so that they receive this altered state experience, and it's bright and light and fairly comfortable. But this might be for a very, like, quick or a shorter restructure, because a lot of psychic surgeries, you might end up being bedridden for many days. You might end up being in a recognition that you're not allowed to go outside. Things like you're not allowed to physically exercise, minimal food. Maybe you stop you drinking water. One of the things that happens for me when I go through psychic surgery is that my hygiene shifts into a different form. So I'm not allowed to wash my face with any chemicals or toxins. I'm not allowed to wear makeup. I have to keep my natural body oils on my body. I experience a lot of different symptoms in that way. And the reason that I know I'm all over the place already, so I apologize, because I am sedated, right? So if you see it as a natural form of when someone goes through psychic surgery, it's no different to a hospital surgery. There is a sedative and a numbness that takes place. Now, we'll explain what and why and how that happens, but I'm going to go back to why do we have psychic surgery before I get too detoured. And I might need to close my eyes on and off so that I can stay as focused as possible. But psychic surgery occurs so that your cells and your molecules can hold a different frequency and a light formation, or what you might consider a different consciousness or bandwidth. Your body, your physical anatomy, will be restructured with frequency and light specifically so that your capacity with your light pillar or your channel can receive or hold different things. So some people will have a psychic surgery or go under a lot of psychic surgery because they were, and you might have heard me talk of this, they may have been born into a body that wasn't designed for their consciousness. So that was something that happened to me. I was born into a family where the genetics and the DNA didn't match the consciousness that I held, which meant I was very dyslexic. I had autism and lots of neurological challenges in the form of communication and hyperactivity, and I was unable to be in my body because my spirit, it actually hurt my spirit and my soul to be in my body. My body wasn't designed to hold my consciousness. So that might be one reason that you end up with a lot of psychic surgeries. Another reason might be that you've agreed to carry something. So I agreed to carry the Universal Library, the Halls of Amenti, and the Alexandra Library in my physical body. So on my right side, specifically my right leg, I was, I guess you could say, injected with extracellular physical cells that allowed for what we would call in this reality a genetic modification, or what's it called? Can you give me the words, please? Like a chromosomal abnormality, or a genetic condition, and that was the additional cells that held this library. Now, the library was put into the body over time. Now, if we look at it from the human lens, those psychic surgeries correlated with pregnancies. They correlated with hormonal points, or those 7-year cycles. And they were done in a way that we don't recognize what's necessarily happening and what's taking place. But I was basically holding universal information to pass to the 144 through transmissions, engagement, and interaction. So that's another way that psychic surgery might have happened. And that can happen right from the point of conception. And your vessel can be going through many, many, many psychic surgeries for many, many reasons, depending on your blueprint, your reason, what you've chose to carry, what you've chosen to hold, what family you've ended up in, what your consciousness has evolved into. So if you're someone who's chosen to have a walk-in, you might end up having many, many psychic surgeries right before your walk-in steps into your body, because you have to upgrade your cellular structure, which can look like rapid physical transformation. Now, for a lot of people, they've watched me over the years physically, how my appearance has shifted and changed and moved. And a lot of that in physique, as well as in facial structure and different elements of my being, has happened because of the psychic surgeries that have occurred. Some of the other reasons that psychic surgery might be necessary is that you've gone through a quantum leap or a quantum transformation, and you're suddenly functioning from a completely different reality. That reality may or may not have been a part of your soul's development or blueprint, and suddenly you have to quickly adjust your physical anatomy to catch up to that consciousness. So there are many reasons behind why psychic surgery is necessary, and it's very helpful to understand if you've had big consciousness shifts, big frequency floods, I like to call them, and they will help you to see the necessity of, okay, the more that I expand my bandwidth, or the more that I evolve beyond my blueprint, the more that I choose, and if I'm moving very quickly on my journey, if I'm moving super fast in my experience, that this accelerated period will actually cause my physical body to require more of these. So one of the awarenesses around that, something that I had to go through, the healing and the trauma, was I actually had to move through a lot of physical my body's trauma. My body was so traumatized by how many psychic surgeries had, how many times I'd been lifted, my spirit and my consciousness had been lifted out of my body, and these different things were taking place. And the feeling of whether you want to call them light tools, but they were being sliced and diced in the ethereal realms, and also by my higher self. Now, that's a very traumatic experience for the human being to move through and to understand. I've been cutting myself up over and over for many, many years, and my body is terrified of certain expressions, because that represents this memory within the self. So that is one of the awarenesses. So we've gone into why you might have psychic surgery. What happens when you start to experience it? So one of the things that I get shown now is I actually get shown the surgery lights. So, those really bright, there's lots of them in the square, lots of square bluey white lights. They're cleary lights, and they glare in my face. Now, I'm not a very visual human being. A lot of the information, because I have been told many times based on the body that I did come into, that if I had vision, I wouldn't be able to cope in this reality, and I would be mentally unstable because of the amount of information I receive. So I'm very claircognizant. I'm very auditory. I have the ability. I have every other ability, except my vision is a little less online, which I'm quite happy with, because I don't really require it or need it. My perception is very strong. So what I see is I actually start to see these square blinding lights, and they'll flash up to remind me. Now, this is not to scare me. It's actually to remind me, because what happens afterwards can be very confusing to the human being if you're not brought the awareness, just like I said earlier, that I was reminded by my partner that I'm actually going through this at the moment. So first of all, you will receive sedation. So when there's been a big quantum leap, when you've decided there's a big choice point, when you're preparing for a walk-in, when you're going through a big ascension journey, there will be a point where you then get sedated. So sedation comes first. Now, you can get sedated or you can be numbed. There are the different ways that will come through the physical body. Now, sedation often feels a little bit different, because it can knock you straight out. So you're like, why all of a sudden am I so tired? I think they call it narcolepsy. I might be wrong. But you can end up, and this can be connected to those things, where you're all of a sudden, you just have to go to sleep. You can't even keep your eyes open anymore, and you have to take yourself to bed, right? And then all of a sudden you're flooded with light. Now, this is something that happened to me nearly every single day for 3 years. In the afternoons, I would get sedated and taken through a light transformation, because of how quickly I was evolving and moving through and remembering. Now, the sedation is where you will be knocked out and you will not be able to keep your eyes open. So it is something that if you're not aware of, you can try and force it and you won't be able to. So something to be aware of in future, if you've noticed, oh, you're like, oh, I've actually had this. I really resonate with this. I know this has been a thing. That if you are in a consistency, something that's very helpful is to actually go, when am I getting these surgeries? If you're going through a rapid purification or awakening or ascension journey, what is the time that they actually, or I am, or they are doing this procedure or surgery upon me? And then you kind of need to schedule your day around it, because it's not something that you can push through. Trust me, I've tried many times. The other one is the numbing. So you might be semi-sedated. I think they would call that, in actual surgery, medical human 3D surgery, where you get like the one when you have a cesarean, that kind of thing. You get the sedation, but you don't get knocked out to go to sleep. I can't remember. Epidural. So you can get multiple different numbing agents and assistance, and this is to support you, it's to help you, it's so that you're not traumatized, and so you don't feel the pain. Now, I've had a lot of surgeries quickly that I've done myself, or light alchemy transformations that have been very painful, because it's been something that's need to be rapidly, quickly removed, or I've been psychically attacked and I've had psychic weapons put into my body, and that is a blade, and you've got to flush the wound, you've got to then bring in healing balm, you've got to stitch it up, you've got to make sure it's clear of infection, and it's quite a lengthy process. And there are some people that have up so many wounds in their physical body that they don't know from all this psychic surgery. I've had to pull out many different daggers from people's backs and different voodoo and all kinds of things that physically actually cause the cells to become very damaged. There can be infestations, infections, internal bleeding. All of that does exist on the ethereal realm, but also it actually has a very physical manifestation in the form of pain, congestion. You might end up with a blood nose, you might end up with bruising. All of those things are very real manifestations in the physical reality. So the first thing to be aware of, especially if you're going through this a lot, what is the numbing, or what is it that's the pain relief that is being given to me? How is it that I get work done, right? So right now I am sedated with what you might consider an epidural, and I'm also numbed. So that's why I'm a little bit docile. And I'm not very, my communication's a bit slow. It's probably a bit loopy, might not be as engaging as normal, because there's another element to this, which I will get to. So understanding how your pain relief happens. Now, working around this so that it supports you, but also acknowledging that when you are sedated, when you are numb, your human being doesn't feel, right? So it's no difference to if you have numb gums and you're like, oh, I'm dribbling, and things don't work properly. Your brain won't work properly, your body won't work properly. You can't do the same physical things that you would, because you're just not actually functioning at the level that you are used to. So that with that numbness, what happens is the human being goes, why don't I feel anything? And you might be having a conversation and somebody might send you something really beautiful. So for instance, I just got this beautiful message from my partner. I read it and I knew it was beautiful. I knew it was so lovely. Couldn't feel a thing. I was like, I'm going to have to read this when I can feel. And I'd forgotten about the psychic surgery still. And I was like, it's like you have no feelings or sensations, right? So your emotional quadrants and your somatic sensations are actually turned off, but you don't realize it because it's an ethereal communication or connection. So that becomes very scary for the human being, because the human being suddenly very tired, feels numb, wondering what happened, oh, why is it that I suddenly don't want to do anything? Why is it that I don't care about my partner? Why don't I have feelings towards my kids? Why is it that something that I cared about so deeply yesterday feels like I actually don't care, and I'd rather, this is where, if the human mind's not checked, it can bring on what you might consider like death thoughts. Now, I don't mean suicidal thoughts. I mean those thoughts of, um, I don't want to do this anymore, or what's the point? I may as well give up. Those kinds of thoughts will come up because you're not actually feeling. Now, another big part of this and reason for this actually is because either your soul or your spirit is actually empty of your vessel temporarily. So for those of you that are very psychic and very in tune, you have more than enough. You have permission and consent to tune or look in to my field with only that intention. I've learned not to be too open and vulnerable, as people do fuck around in there. And see that at the moment, my spirit is not in my body, and neither is my soul. Now, that's very, very, very confronting for someone who's used to being very spiritually connected or very connected to their gifts and abilities. So there will be things like your psychic abilities will be less online. Your channeling abilities have to change. Now, I've spent a lot of time being able to function without my spirit and my soul because of all of these surgeries. So I can still channel. I just channel from the human octave, the physical three-dimensional realm, which means I can still communicate, I can weave light, I can still do things. Not as high in my capacity, but I've learned different ways. I've learned different techniques or technologies that I can still cope with my business needs, which is a lot of quantum transformation that I if something goes offline, I've mastered the other. So something that a lot of my initiates will be, it's like I've lost my gifts and abilities, and I can't see and I can't feel, and I'm like, yeah, because you're going through upgrades, and you actually need to have your eyes offline at the moment because you need to come down more into your body, or you need to master this element of yourself because you're too dependent on this element of yourself. And so that can be a little bit scary because you can feel vulnerable. You can feel without yourself. For me, I dislike any time that I don't have my spirit. I'm okay without my soul because I feel like I'm so embodied in my soul. My soul is here regardless. Like I know my soul inside out. I do soul blueprint. And so it's like, even when it's not here, it's here. But without my spirit, I struggle because my spirit is what gives me joy. My spirit is what gives me my spark. My spirit is what makes me happy and bouncy and playful and curious. And without my spirit, I feel like an empty vessel. I feel like I'm kind of just going through the motions. And it's not something that I specifically enjoy. But if I remember with those lights that come up, then I'm able to manage. Oh, it's okay. You're just going through psychic surgery for maybe the next 17 hours or however long I get intuitively, and whatever the guidance is, then I can be like, okay, cool, beautiful. I'm okay with being numb and not bouncy and happy and vibrationally the way that I prefer for this period because I understand the process. So that can be very uncomfortable, right? You go through a big quantum acceleration and you have like a profound insight and awakening. And it's so funny, they're actually doing something on my ribs right now. And I'm like, do you have to do this right now? Of course they do, because we're on a live call. So we will get to that. You don't have to nudge even harder. Ow. So what happens is that they're going to make this really difficult. They're just going to be like, we'll show you what happens. few breaths to try and focus. Where was I at? All right, so they will, you will, they will. So when you see people that just come off and they like don't know what they're saying, right? So I've had so many moments of that today. Forgot I was in this, right? You can't communicate. You slur your words. Your brain, mouth channels don't work. So you can feel that cognitive capacity drop in the form of glitchiness or brain fog, but it's kind of like it's actually like that hangover feeling. So sedation, you want to look at your time, you want to be kind to yourself because you're going to be without your spirit and your spark. And then what also can happen during that time is a lot of physical sensations. So although you're without your spirit and your soul, now the reason for your spirit and your soul being out of your body is because your spirit is receiving new threads of light. Your soul's also going through different developments through octaves and transformation. And to do it all in physical embodiment would knock most of us out, would be very sick, and wouldn't be able to manage, because most of us have real 3D, still human life experiences. We have families, jobs, all of those things. And we've chosen to do this journey in a more functional reality. We're not in, most of us aren't in temples. Most of us aren't doing that. So this means that, God, you can't remember what you're talking about. So to be kind to yourself during that period. When you first recognize that it's happening, get a intuitive guidance of how long. So then you can be with that. You can also let people know. Some of you have people that you can be communicative with. For instance, it's cool to let my partner know that right now I'm going through this. He's like, oh, okay, I'm aware that this is what happens when psychic surgery happens. And he's really kind and compassionate because he's witnessing. So that will remind you, and sort of be like, okay, I'm going to be a bit numb, maybe a bit disassociated, and a bit more fatigued for however long as I go through this process. The physical sensations that will happen. So even though you're minus the spirit, I know I repeated this, so I'm so sorry. You will repeat things, the physical sensations. You will repeat. You will have things that you will feel that will be random pains. That can be where things are being stretched, moved. It can be where organs are repositioned. It can be where literally your bone structure. So one of the more painful ones for me that I've had is when my skeletal system was being restructured. Now, bone is I don't know if you can have enough sedative to be able to move through a bone restructuring and the change of your skeletal system, because it is the more harder, dense part of the physical anatomy. It's the hardest thing to redesign and to allow for light. You might find one of the things that happens a lot for me in psychic surgery is that when I do sleep, I start coughing up fluids, like I've got pneumonia, but it's energetic. So I start choking on water that isn't in my throat, and I wake myself up, and then I roll over and I can breathe again, right? So breathing issues can be a challenge. You can feel like there's different sensations and movements, and you might feel liquids, you might feel your heart racing, right? So all of these things would be a normal experience for this kind of temporary, right? You shouldn't be feeling this consistently long term. It should only be for the short period of time. The best way to move through it is actually to know, it is pretty consistent for most human beings, but it is to avoid sunlight. So just like when you're sick and you're healing, often people say to you sort of go in the cave, and you the reason for that actually is, it's interesting because the sun People say the sun's very healing. Yes, it is, but it's actually not helpful if you're still in the process of like a very raw open wound. It's too much sensation, too much activation, too much that it doesn't allow the body to naturally go through that winter cycle of transformation. So being aware, you may need to, before a psychic surgery, you might eat heaps and then eat nothing. You might find that you don't need any water or any liquids for a long period of time. You may also find that certain, you've got the sickness feelings and all of those. Um, uh, um, the 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 best thing to move through it is to acknowledge that it's not a bad thing, right? It's not a negative thing. It's actually something that is supporting you. Now, what happens for those that get scared of doing this, for those that are afraid to have their light bodies, their physical body surgically upgraded based on maybe abduction memories, maybe because I mean, I had a lot of fears because I was not only altered by the goodness of myself and angelic beings, but I was also tested on and genetically manipulated, and I had the agenda, and so there was a polarizing experience, right? And so although I would allow myself to go through those experiences, I still had both memories a part of my experience until I claimed my sovereignty and said no to being genetically modified and to being used as a test dummy or for my channel to be hijacked. And that took a lot of healing and a lot of karmic reconciliation and a lot of time to understand that what did they want about me, what was special about me, because we're all special, we've all got our own gifts. And they wanted my genetics because I have connection to royal bloodlines. They also wanted my channel because of how clear it is when I'm online. And so there were certain things that they wanted that from me because that is something that is helpful for their agenda when used with their focus. So when you have been, I guess, at the effect of a more negative psychic surgery, it does show you your gifts. And it will also show you where you have the ability to claim your sovereignty back over your body, over your sleep, over your astral experience, over your channel. That's something, because I work with women all the time who are conduits and priestess and goddess that have very, 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 very high level spiritual connection and channel. Their channels are often have been contracted to different, usually a trinity of descended leaders. There's a masculine that usually has a remote control, and they have to go back and they have to reclaim their power. They have to recognize where they gave it up. They have to recognize any parts where they've played into any negative impact on the earth, and then go through this reconciliation process, which is very empowering and very powerful to experience and receive that. Um, so it can help when you sort of see how many of these have I had? Why have I had so much of this? What does this actually show me about myself? Why is it that I'm experiencing so much? Oh, I have a really high capacity. My body can't keep up. Oh, that's why I'm so anxious. Oh, that's why I'm so ADHD. Oh, that's why my nervous system can't regulate. It's not just my trauma. It's the fact that I have so much light in my body that my vagus nerve is overloaded and my circuitry can't communicate with my heart, with my gut, with my neurology. So it helps you to build a plan on a human lens to be like, what do I do to assist my human being so that this light and matter can start to merge and become friends and become one? So really beautiful awarenesses in regards to who am I, what is wanted from me, what do I have as a gift, where am I going, how fast is my evolution, and what's important for me to recognize so I can support my human being. I feel like there's one other thing, touch point that I need to express before I take myself into sedated sleep. We've done the why, we've done the who's, we've done the presentation, we've talked about Iske esikia shikata karakatagoria tatakeshiketa karakatageria na tutukumatagoria. Mari eki satai shataramatakeria na tutukurokutugoria tatakamatekiandeana. I think one of the important things as I guess, a closing off piece around this is, what is the goal of the surgery? So, I guess a lot of mine have not been done very consciously until I was able to consciously understand, because there were so many, but I didn't understand a lot of the goal of them, like where were they taking me or what were they providing me? And I didn't use enough intuitive questioning because I just didn't have the capacity based on how quickly I was evolving, how quickly I was changing, everything that was happening. And the goal can be very, very supportive. The goal of, okay, right now I'm in this this surgery. I'm going through a psychic transformation, and I'm without spirit and soul. But what's the goal of it? Where is it taking me? Because when you're with the numbness, when you don't care, when you don't have feeling, inspiration, joy, instead of having that giving up moment, if you can know what the goal is, then you can be able to be more compassionate in the guiding of where you're going to, right? It's okay because I'm going in this direction. It's okay because it's moving me forward. So a little bit of, pain for pleasure, or a little bit of resistance for a breakthrough, or leaning into the dark to find the medicine. And if you know the goal, then the physical and the amount of sleep or the lack of connection with people or going outside, or for me, not allowed to bathe, right? If you've got open wounds, you're actually not allowed in water because you can't get your wounds, which is where the hygiene piece comes in, is like, if you're not, that can be something that your human can really judge, is like, oh, I'm not allowed to go swimming, I'm not allowed to bathe, like I'm being guided to shower or wash my face. That's a bit gross. Yeah, well, you're actually open, and water is also a conductor of energy, and that can zap you and cause even more extremes to happen. So it's more complex, but it's also very simple if you look at it in the 3D realm. If you were having your your brain cut open, you're not going to go and put your head under a shower. It's really kind of if we can translate our human reality to what's going on in our ethereal reality, we can actually problem solve things really simply, because it's a direct translation. Like it's a direct engagement in that way. So looking at your goal, if you have, some of you may or may not have the capacity to be very intuitive or to self-reflect, and you might need to just zonk out. But if you can get like 1 or 2 or 3 words of what this is taking you towards, what is it providing, so that you're like, it's okay. It's a temporary experience. It's kind of like, all right, I'm going to get this taken out so I can have stronger health. Or whatever that goal is, that you can stay focused. It will help your and I'm sure that they do this with many medical mainstream surgeries, is they get you to think about what's on the other side, what's going to happen when you open your eyes out and it's been a success, and all of those things. So what's the goal beyond, and how can you focus on the future of where you're going, so that you don't allow for those negative programs? Is really not like, oh no, what if I don't wake up from this, or what if I, all of those things. We want to reduce the impact of the mental story and the mental chatter. So I hope this was helpful. I hope that my communication and my sedated, numb inability to communicate for the last 40 minutes has helped you to understand so you can be more kind with yourself. One of the other things, itchiness. Oh my God, it drives me nuts. So your skin can get itchy. You can end up feeling, I've felt like I've had lice all day. And I forgot, right? I forgot what I'd said this morning. I forgot that I'd seen the lights, and I was like, why is my head so itchy? Maybe I've got nits off my daughter, but I can't feel, right? So I also that's just a lot of energy in my third eye, in my crown, in my pineal. I kept getting that it's just energetic, Geeia. Stop questioning. But because I can't feel, you can often stop trusting yourself because the thing, like your spirit and your soul, that are normally there to help you, go offline. Um, so I love you. I appreciate you so, so much. Please do share this with somebody who you might feel would get some assistance. There's obviously a lot of energy and support and activations that move between the words, other than it just being educational and communicational. I want to call it dribble, but I'm not allowed. Educational dialogue. There is a lot of things that move and weave here. So these spaces, although they're sometimes like, hey, yeah, you could have said that in 20 minutes. That's not the point. The point is that we get the light and the information that's between the words, because I'm sure I would have much preferred to have done it in 20 minutes so I can get into bed. All right. I love you. I love you. I love you. Thank you. Please like, subscribe, turn on your notifications. There is a little bit of a video coming up. Ooh, that was just a focus one, but that made my whole eyes go, whoa, what happened there? Um, there is a video being released tomorrow that has like a little bit of a divine wealth clearing and explanation on preparation for direct channeling sessions. Obviously, right now is not the best time for me to be facilitating. I facilitate what I need to, and I can facilitate any sessions, but within 2 days, I'll be back online. So if you are wanting to work with me directly, I have the Trinity Unlock sessions. They're 30-minute quantum leaps where we work on one major consciousness reality that's got you stuck, contracted, so that you can evolve into a higher state of being. We've got the 1-hour direct channeling sessions. We have New Earth's Mystery School, which is, oh my God, that's my favorite place because I really get so much from that in the reminder of what it is to be a New Earth being and to be here in that form. Wealth transformation, and we have the Blueprint Codex, which is all about purpose, reading your blueprint, direct channeling your offerings, and all the yummy good stuff. So if you're a healer, a coach, if you're wanting to start your business and look at that from a conscious entrepreneurial standpoint, just one of those sessions can be all that you need to burst the life force, put the frequency in to your current already offer, refine some things, bring some structure in that actually allows it to anchor and land. Trust me, I went through years of trial and error, and it can be very, very supportive. So if that feels good, let me know. Otherwise, I love you, and I look forward to our next conversation when I am spiritful. All right. Love you. Adonai.